What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring you everything fresh and entertainment. I am your host, Drew Brumfield, and join with me are my favorite anime friends. First off is Seth. Seth, how you doing?
It was all just a dream.
Exactly. And also with his freshly quote ready to go, we have Robert. Robert, how you doing?
You're going to carry that weight.
You are indeed going to carry that weight because we are just humble podcasters, man. And we are here, if the quotes say give it away, we are here to talk about probably our, at least like top five, some of our favorite anime, which is Cowboy Bebop. But you might be wondering, well, we've already done this before. But this time we're talking specifically about the movie. We're doing a movie review about the Cowboy Bebop movie. And this time we have Seth. So Seth gets to talk about why he loves this anime so much and why it's one of the best ever created. Um, so
I
yeah,
mean, I'm excited to hop. Yeah, I'm excited to hop in on this. Obviously, I listened to your guys' podcast that you did with like Becca, where you did like sort of like an overview
hmm
of the show. I loved it. I The whole time I did have mad FOMO of like, damn, I really wish I could have hopped back in there and like uh, threw my hat into the ring on that one. But it was a great listen
yeah,
to talk about all those characters because yeah, like much like you guys, Cowboy Bebop is one of my favorite animes of all time. Um, it was the one that I've kind of like started with, um, other than Sword Art Online, but we don't talk about that one.
ew, gross.
See, you took the Bebop route. I took the SAO route. That's why
No,
we're
I
different
here's
people.
the thing. The first one, no, the first anime I watched was Sword Art Online,
Oh my
and
god.
I won't lie, I like the first arc to it where they're in oh fuck
Ironcrad.
Ironcrad, yeah, and then they go to the Elf world and it lost me, so I quit. But
You
yeah,
made it
like
farther than
I
me.
did start. I started with Sword Art Online, and then I was like, all right, that was okay. What's the next thing I watch? And then I started watching like Angel Beats and Cowboy Bebop, and that's what, yeah, that's what really solidified my love for anime. God, and Cowboy Bebop is. I've had a recent thing too where I was like, is Bebop actually as good as I remember it, or is it just one of those things where like I'm like every other hipster online where I'm like, oh yes, Bebop is the best anime. It's in the top five along with like fucking
Attack on
Inuyasha. I don't know,
Titan.
some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Attack on Titan or whatever. But recently I've also been rewatching some Bebop, the show as well, and it's like, oh my god, it still fucking holds up like
It's really good.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here talking specifically about the movie. And I also, before we get too far, I want to thank everyone for watching us on YouTube, watching on or listening to us on all the other podcast platforms. We'll try to get some more short form content out. We've been a little, it's I say I have been a little lackluster on that. It's been my fault, but we'll try to get more of that out in the future. That said, though, I think, unless you guys want to do announcements unrelated to the show, I think we should just hop right into it. So,
I'm ready.
I will actually start us off because I specifically wanted to talk when Robert said I wanted like he wanted to do the Cowboy Bebop movie. The only thing that played back in my head, literally second for second, line for line, was the opening. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. In my opinion, this is like the best anime opening ever. And when I say opening, I'm not talking about the music. The music's great, music's good, but I mean like opening scene. This is peak Cowboy Bebop. You could show anyone that 4 minute clip of how the movie opens and be like, "That's a show. That's the entire show. Is what that is." It is perfect. Everything from the robbery to this monologuing villain that's just talking nonsense. There's a couple slide jokes in there, just like when uh, Jet and Spider making fun of him before they walk in. Jet walks up, or excuse me, Spike walks up with his headphones, knocks one out nonchalantly, walks in, all guns pointed at him, and they take him out so cleanly and everything's cool. But of course, classic Bebop style, it messes up, and they have a little bad rapport. And the hardest line in almost all of anime comes up of after like he holds someone hostage. Spike just, well, that seems like a her problem. We're not cops. and just shoots the guy. He doesn't actually kill him. He actually shoots the gun out of his hand. But when the old lady gets all mad and pissy, is like, just a humble bounty hunter, ma'am. And it's so fucking cool. And oh my god, this voice actor, freaking why am I blanking?
Steve Bloom.
Steve Bloom. Yeah,
Steve Bloom.
I knew his first name. I don't know why I forgot Steve because I was focused on the thing. The reason he's just like a legend is because of like Spike, another character like Wolverine. But God, he does such a good job in this movie. I mean, in the entire anime, but yeah, that opening scene is just like that could just be the episode and I'd be happy with it. It was great. Could have just went straight to credits. I would have been like, perfect. That's all I wanted.
Like I said, it's a great both like establishing moment for like Spike and Jet, and also just kind of the world in general for Bebop, because it's kind of a shithole in a way. It's like there's like robberies and shit going on all the time. You got bounty hunters.
It's futuristic. There's spaceships and stuff, but it's still like 80s future. Yeah.
There are people that are very much out there for themselves in this world, and this opening shot really just it both reestablishes it if you've seen the series before, and then establishes it if you're new to the series. So I fully agree with you, Drew, that I think it's probably one of the best parts of the movie. Like, it having such a strong start kind of just pushes the momentum forward through the rest of the film. Not that the rest of the film isn't great also, but
I even love that, like, it really doesn't have anything to do with anything else. It's just, like, them on a daily basis. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it's the cold open. I think it's one of the best cold opens, like, out there. Just to, especially since, Cowboy Bebop, it came out, the movie, Knockin' on Heaven's Door, came out, I think, in 2001. So it's been about 3 years since the series had wrapped up. So it's like, if you had never seen Cowboy Bebop before, even the movie is still a good, I think, introduction to it, because everything you need to know about the characters kind of happens within like the first like couple of minutes. One of the things I liked is you pointed out with Spike is that he plays it. One of the reasons I think we all like Spike is he's that type of character where it feels like he doesn't take anything seriously, but he's just so good at fighting that he doesn't have to. Like, these are like level 1 like goons compared to him. He's like a level 100 boss. So I think that's what makes this scene work, is that, like, obviously these guys are clearly outclassed by Spike, but I think there's something that's shown here that we don't really get to see as much in the series, which is I think Spike does have like a heart, but he's really good at playing it like he doesn't have one. Like, he clearly, like, I like, obviously he wasn't going to get this woman killed, but he knows how to play his bluff right to make the guy freak out, point the gun at him, and then like shoot it out of his hand. Like, he's just that fucking good. And whenever we get into it later, there's going to be more examples of this like pop up where he basically like sort of plays his bluff of like, I don't really care what happens to other people, but he actually does.
Yeah, heck, he plays it so well. Even Jet, like, right after that line's like, whoa. Like, yo,
like, you were joking there, Spike, right?
You're fucking with him, right? It's like, nah, I don't care.
Well, like, Jet's over here trying to kind of diffuse the situation, and then Spike's just like, I got this under control.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
This is why we love Spike.
Yeah.
I think another thing is the thing that was really good though about this opening intro is not even the cold open. It's the opening sequence right here, the opening animation sequence. I love it because it's basically the one where it's showing the credits, it's showing like who worked on it, and obviously like the title reveal and all that. And it's just showing this city on Mars. One, it does such a good job of like giving you an idea of what the world of Cowboy Bebop is like. You guys mentioned it in your podcast last time that like Bebop is this really, its world is this very weird mesh of like future and retro. Like, you have like, yes, you have spaceships and gateways and cities on planets away from Earth. But at the same time, they're using up like these dial-up style computers or something that look like more in home of something you would get in the 80s and 90s than anything like right now or what you would expect in the future. Um,
And how one episode's
yeah,
like them looking for a Betamax player.
Oh yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it was Faye's episode.
Yes.
And God, what I love about it is, um, and not just here, but like for the rest of the movie, when you get shots of like the skyline of the city, it's like in your head, you have to remind yourself, this is a city on Mars. This isn't New York. But everything to me just screams like this is New York City in like the late 80s, early 90s. Because of the cars that people drive, because of like the slums that you see, the oceans, the like near like the river and stuff like that. It's like, oh my god, like, and that's what I love
Pretty,
about it.
I'm pretty sure in one of the shots I even did see the Twin Towers in it.
Yeah, there's
Oh
definitely
yeah.
something there that feels very evocative of like the Twin Towers. I just really like the world of like Bebop, where it's just it makes all this futuristic stuff just feel normal, you know? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't really get in your face of like how futuristic everything is. If anything, it shows just how unreliable and like buggy that technology is, which is the way it would be in this world. I love that about the establishing shots with the opening sequence. But what I really love about the opening sequence is they're really showing off the animation budget here. You already could tell with the initial fight scene in the gas station that like they've already amped up the animation quality,
Yeah.
because it's a movie. They have more money to spend on this stuff.
Yeah.
But what they use is a method called rotoscoping, in the opening animation sequence. And it's like all these people just going about their lives, walking down the street, buying something from a stall, sitting on like the park benches. It's all in rotoscope, how they move, how they touch their faces. It looks all realistic in this because with rotoscoping, it's basically like, it's basic. I'm not an animator, so I'll definitely probably get this wrong. But the best way I could describe it from what I've seen is like you're basically taking something that was filmed for real, like an actual live person moving around, and you are overlaying animation onto it. That is what I think rotoscoping is essentially.
Hmm.
So, and what I love is like the opening animation doesn't focus on Spike or the Bebop crew. It focuses on just the normal people. And I think it will, when we get into it later on, I think it ties into like just, actually I'll just say no. I think it just creates a better sense of this world that like it's like no real heroes or villains. It's just people like living out their lives. And I just really love that vibe with it. Like it's just such a good opening. I love that title sequence. It's just perfect to me.
Yeah. No, it's
It kind of goes into the show's theme, where it's about the people in the world, not just the main characters. Like the main characters are who you're following, but it's not solely about them.
Yeah, like Spike and the crew are is the audience's lens into this world, but a lot of times the stories aren't directly about them. It's about the world. It's about the regular people just living in it, trying to get by.
no exactly. Um, we could. I mean, I feel like I would be repeating myself if I went on, and I'd mainly be repeating Seth on going into like how detailed the world is and how different it is from everything else because it's not really futuristic, and it's not really like retro. It's this perfect blend that like makes like nothing else looks like Cowboy Bebop. Like every there's a couple things that try, but it's this lightning in a bottle where it just stands out on its own. Um, Let me ask you guys, getting back to specifically like this movie. Before
Hmm.
we get into like kind of the general story overall, what other than the opening, what was kind of some of like your like really standout moments, either like with the animation or with the voice acting? Like, what was the like what's the thing that like you first remember when you think of this movie?
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's something my first like thing I remember, but something that always like stood out to me, especially when I rewatched this movie, was it's not like a big scene. It's a quiet scene where Jet's like alone on the Bebop with Ein, and he's talking about how everyone just kind of comes and goes, like it kind of gets lonely without them.
Mm-hmm.
It it really kind of symbolizes that the Bebop kind of just brings everybody together, but they're not friends, they're not family, but the Bebop still ties them all together, and it I think it just really like hammers home that Jet really does care about these people, even though he kind of plays it off that he doesn't. It's like
Mhm.
I think on
Mm-hmm.
some level they do all care about each other, and that scene in particular just really like hammers that home for me when Jet's
Yeah.
like alone and monologuing like, it is really lonely without everybody around.
Yeah.
I have to agree with that on Robert. It's something that was brought up in your podcast. It was one of the things where like I was sort of like I was saying like I don't agree with that while I was like listening to you guys. I remember Drew specifically as you and Becca talking about how the Bebop is like family with each other, um, and I was like I don't agree with that. Even in the show, I don't agree that they're family. Um, I think how Bebop works is Bebop's entire theme is about opposites. Like cowboys and space. You have jazz, and you have like this like weird. You have like this jazz and rock fusion. Um, and you have strangers and family. I think the Bebop is a family of strangers where they they it's sort of like they tolerate each other because they know like we all have our secrets, we all have our past, but since we all have that going for us, we also know it's just like I won't ask and you won't ask kind of deal going on with like during the show. I think kind of the tragedy is that like you have all these characters locked into their own past that they can't see the future for themselves, where like the true tragedy of Bebop is there was always the potential for them to be a family, but all of them are so caught up in their own pasts that they just can't let that go. They just can't allow themselves to be vulnerable with each other, um, to let it happen. And like just kind of going back to the series, by the time like for example, Faye is ready to have that, where just like Spike doesn't have to go off and go after Vicious. It's already too late. Spike doesn't see that future anymore. He's only focused on finishing out his past. And I think that's like the big tragedy at the heart of like Bebop is they were so close to being a family, but the characters themselves stopped that from happening.
I mean, I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit here, but it really says something when there's like a scene where like Spike's like locked up with the new girl. I think you said Elaine. Is that her name?
Electra.
Electra.
Electra. Electra. Okay. Yeah, when he's like in the cell of Electra and he opens up about his past and he remarks that that's the first time he's opened up to anybody about that. And it's like it's just someone he met not too long ago instead of like the people he's been traveling with for the past God knows how long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah. Not.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
Not Jet.
th-
Not
I think
anyone.
the
Yeah.
reason. I mean, because if you think about it, both because like it's that You know what? I'm glad Robert you talked about that because that was going to be my favorite scene that I want to talk about. It was the scene with Electra and Spike talking.
Transitions. I love it.
Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of, but I love all the action sequences in this movie, but it's the quiet moments like this that really like makes it work for me. Because I think what it is Spike finds the one other person in this world that gets what he's going through, where it's someone who they've gone throughout their whole lives not being scared of death because they didn't have anything necessarily to live for, so why should they be scared? But when the fear of death only comes when they find someone that they love and care about. For Spike it was Julia, for Electra it was Vincent. Spike even says one of the reasons why he has to go after Vincent is, quote, he has the same soul as me. It's because they're both dealing with the same issues of like holding on to the past, and like their one reason for existing is like gone now. Sort of fast forwarding a bit, but like even Vincent mentions that like he like basically all his for for as long as he's known since he lost his memory and existing, everything that he was going through in reality felt like a dream he was walking through. And he says, it's only now that I feel like any of the, at the end, when I felt any of it was real. And he was talking about Elektra, the time that he spent with her, what he remembered. I'm like, God damn. Like, it was his reason for living, and he didn't realize it until the very fucking end of the movie. And I think that's the same thing with Spike is, you know, going back to the show, his reason for living was Julia. And whenever he loses that, you know, he sort of drifts and doesn't really like know what to make of his life, only to be reunited with Julia and then to immediately lose her, not realizing that like people like Jet and Faye and Ed and Ein are another reason to live, but he's so locked in with the past he can't let that go. It's really good and like powerful character writing, in my opinion, that just makes that shit work. And that's why I love that scene too. Is it's the most vulnerable I think you ever get to see Spike in the entire series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So moving on, because we basically are talking about the story now. Yeah, this entire movie is like, yeah, it's the Cowboy Bebop movie, and like the other characters are here, definitely. But like this movie really is like, this is Spike and these two new characters, Elektra and Vincent, and like the parallels between his journey and theirs. And this is really like Spike's movie. Like, so I said already point out, so much of this is just like his character growth and like him going through and like reliving a lot of this. In fact, a lot of this, through like a good portion of this movie, especially like a lot of the action scenes and a lot of that, Spike's by himself, or he's with Elektra, but like he's not with the entire crew. He's kind of doing this for the most part solo. And like so much of this is just like, I'm gonna kind of be repeating you, Seth, but like, yeah, so much of this is just like this mystery of figuring out who Vincent is, and like the more Spike kind of figures out who he is, the more he's like, he mirrors my own story. And yeah, I don't know. I'll let Seth continue talking about the story now, so I don't just keep repeating what he says.
All right. Well, so I will talk about the story, but it's good. You're gonna have to bear with me on this because I have a theory on this.
A movie theory,
and I'm not the only. A movie theory, yeah. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who thinks this way, but it's just the feeling I watched this film. So obviously, context of this film is this came out after the series ended already, back in 1998. You know, spoilers if you're watching the if you're listening to the Cowboy Bebop movie podcast, how the original series ends is Spike dies at the end, or at least something happens to him at the end. You could argue that it leaves it kind of open. Yeah. One thing I will say though, Drew, is to be fair, even with Spike's backstory, it's like he survived some bullshit, but yeah, he probably is most likely dead.
I'd be mad if he wasn't, honestly. As much as I love the character, it's where kind of the story.
It's like the ending of something else we talked about last year. It's presumed the main character's dead because of circumstances, but there also is the slight chance that something may have happened to prevent them from dying.
Are you talking about Mass Effect right now? What are you talking? Actually, what is the other thing you're talking about?
16.
Oh, yeah.
Final Fantasy
what was?
16.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was referencing Mass Effect.
I've not played Mass Effect.
I know, that's why I was confused.
Oh my god. Anyways, I personally, I'm of the mind where it's like, in my head, yes, Spike most likely died, but I do like the idea of like, it's open for interpretation, and I don't think anyone's wrong. Like, if you want to believe that Spike survived, that's good for you. Either way, I think Spike has to suffer some sort of death at the end of the series, whether it's his literal death or it's the final death of his past. Either way, there's some form of death for Spike at the end of Cowboy Bebop. And because this movie's coming out later, I personally think that this movie is really Spike's personal purgatory. Take that as you will, whether it's like the last fleeting moments of his brain's consciousness before he finally fades out, or if he's just thinking back on this moment or whatever. But think of it like this: how this movie begins and ends it's about Spike. It's with Spike doing a monologue about the man who only ever lived in dreams, and it's Spike basically sleeping. That's how both the movie begins and ends. It's this, and it's the exact same shot for shot, the beginning and the end. Then you meet Vincent, this guy, this basically terrorist who's like hell bent on like killing everyone on Mars, and we don't really know why initially. He's talking with one of his henchmen about it, and it's like, why are you doing this? And then Vincent says that like to him, his soul is in purgatory. Vincent believes he's already died, much like Spike talks about how he thinks he's already dead. He basically says that like my soul is already dead, and I'm trying to reach heaven. He's knocking on the door. Hence why the movie is called Knocking on Heaven's Door.
It's just because of the song. Just because this is a reference to the song.
But no, well, but like, anyways, like he talks about like how only on Halloween if a soul prays enough, quote unquote, it can reach heaven. And I think in a sense that like Spike's, if you want to think about it, Spike's soul is caught somewhere between earth and heaven, or whatever afterlife is waiting for him. And I think he's trying to like figure it out. And it's going back to this moment where he met a soul similar to him, and he's trying to struggle to break free of that. I think because there's like so much of this film is like talking about like dreams and reality and what is real, what isn't. One of the things that was kind of talked about with like the Cowboy Bebop series in general was that like it's episodic in nature, and people are like, well, there's not really following the main story a lot for the main characters, and some people don't like that, and I can understand that. The way I kind of see it is Cowboy Bebop is a lot like people living through other people's dreams. And because like if you think about it, a lot of the stories of Cowboy Bebop, including this movie, isn't directly about Spike or the main crew. It's about other people's lives. It's about their dreams and them being witnesses to that. You could also argue that the audience is a lot like that too. Anytime you watch or read or listen to a piece of media, it's not just fiction. You're quite literally consuming someone else's dream that they made a reality. And you're learning about like the way they think. You're learning about what they believe and what they feel. And I think that's what's going on with like Spike is he is the man who only ever lived in dreams, and he's trying to make sense of his life through looking at someone else's dream. And he's found the one dream that is eerily similar to his, and that's Vincent. Like the duality is there. One, Vincent just looks a lot like fucking
I was going to bring that up if you didn't already. Yeah, because if you look at the next, Vincent does look like Spike with a beard and different hair. I was wondering if you were going to bring this up. Yeah.
Yeah. The way I kind of see it is Vincent looks like, let's say Spike did survive at the end of Bebop and a few years passed. This is what I would almost envision Spike looking like, is a lot like Vincent. Very grown out, raggedy, has a beard now. But like where they differ is like Spike, I think, still has some value for other life though. For example, in the train sequence, whenever he gets into the fight with like Vincent, if you notice, like in the initial like shootout with him, he pushes a woman down to get her behind cover while he's shooting. It's not something pointed out a lot, but like Spike does kind of care for people. Meanwhile, Vincent's just firing off. He literally just pops one dude in the head just so it'll slow Spike down as he's moving forward. And I think it's like that's their differences. Is the big difference is like where Vincent has lost all hope for this dream, and he's like, I just want to move on to whatever's next. He wants to get as close to the reality that he wants to be in. Spike still, I think, has some level of humanity left and still cares for he still values human life. The very end of the very last fight scene, which by the way is fucking excellent. The last fight scene like has amazing animation. My other little favorite moment is, do you guys remember when Spike does like the fucking kick combo against Vincent against the wall?
Bro,
Like he just pushes him back and he's like pop, pop,
Yeah.
pop.
I
That
didn't want to
shit.
bring up like the waist, but I was waiting to bring up like his fighting stuff, like the way he fights, until we started talking about the animation specifically. And I'll probably still will, but like, God, I love the way Spike fights in this movie. Like the way his like leg dangles and twists in front of him is so cool and like visually, and it's so different from everyone else. Like everyone else is like pretty much like boxing and just like punching and swinging. And like Spike's so lanky and long and like has such like reach. It's so interesting. So, but yeah, he pulls off the combo at the end.
I know, and it's because the way it's animated is it's like Spike is like he never just ends with one punch. It's one punch immediately swinging around and following up with like a backhand or a kick or something like that. It's always another motion. It's everything is like he flows like water. He's always flowing into the next fucking hit.
I was waiting if you were gonna quote the water thing.
Yeah.
Like when he's starting to fight against Vincent on like the tower, notice how he's always like moving. It's almost like he's dancing.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's how every fight he does that little like kind of shuffle dance before he starts swinging. It's very Bruce Lee.
I should point out, this is my very first time ever seeing this movie. I never watched it before, even though I'm a big Bebop fan. Yeah, no, this is this is the first time I ever watched it, but I loved it, and so I actually went back and like after finishing the movie a few days ago, I went back and watched the final fight scene again, and I saw something in the comments. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Is a lot of people went out, it's like this fight feels way more serious than even the fight against Vicious at the end of the series.
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of feel that this like you never see Spike take a fight too seriously a lot. I would say his fights against Vicious and this are like the only times I can remember where Spike had to take a fight seriously.
No, there was that clown. He was getting his ass handed.
Oh yeah, Mad Poirot. Yeah,
yeah, Mad Poirot. He was getting his ass chewed out by that fucking clown.
That's a fair point. But either way, I would still say it's not often Spike takes a fight seriously.
Most fight he fights with a smirk. Like he's very much like, I can beat the shit out of everyone else walking around. Yeah. Sorry, I got off topic there. But going back to what I was initially talking about, I'll talk about that Spike still cares about other people. It's a mirror of the first scene of the cold open where Vincent pulls out the detonator and he's like, obviously, if you know anything about this, the film at this point, once he sets off that detonator, the parade balloons explode and they're going to set out the nanomachines that are going to like kill people. Spike says, I'm just a bounty hunter. I really don't care about saving the world. So he's like, go ahead, do it. Here's the thing, though. It's raining. Part of Spike's plan was to get Faye to make sure it rains and then have those dudes with the airplanes airdrop all the antidotes. Even though Spike is putting on a front of like, I don't care, go for it. Spike already know he's won at this point because it's raining. The cure's already out there. It's like, so good. It's so fucking badass. Like I just that's why I love Spike. It's just like he puts on a front, he doesn't care, but he does care, and he does it in the most badass way possible. But I think, but like going back to, God, I know I have like so many layers of this going on. I swear I'm getting to my point soon. The part that really made it solidify for me where this is Spike like still struggling in purgatory, trying to find his way out, is the butterflies. They talk about how like a side effect of being infected by these nanomachines is that they start to envision these lights as butterflies. To Vincent, he talks about how to him the butterflies were the only thing that really seemed real, and it's like, and he's kind of questioning like, are these butterflies just an illusion, or are they the only thing real leading me out of this dream that I'm in?
and how this, and like once again you get that mirrored scene of the beginning and the end of Spike sleeping, but in the end of this film it ends with Spike waking up, seeing, even though he's already been cured, seeing a butterfly, reaching out with his hand and looking back, and it's not there. And then it cuts to black, and it said, and it asks with the final card of this whole series, "Are you living in the real world?" And it's like, I I think this is a story about Spike's struggle to after. I think this is a story about Spike trying to come to terms with his life after he's died, whatever death he's experienced. I think that's what this movie is about. He is going back to a memory, the closest that he's ever felt to another soul, and trying to figure out what was it all for. I think that's what this movie's about.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I respect the theory. I see the evidence for the theory, and I like that. And I that might even be what they're going for. But and this is a personal thing. I never like stories where the idea is like it was all a dream or it was all just purgatory. Well, I think even if that's what it is, I think this film probably does it best because it does call back to the original and everything Seth just said. The only reason that I see that and it kind of like ticks an ick and like scratches something in my head of just like no, because every story could be that, literally, because dreams are what dreams are, and like, so that's the only reason I don't subscribe to that theory, Seth. I don't know. That's not my interpretation of the film, but I say this with the caveat of, I think even if that is what it is, this film does it way better than everything else, and I wouldn't be as upset. But that's just like, that is not how I view it.
Well,
that's fair.
I think what Steph's getting at is that it's not that these events didn't happen. These events did happen. So it's not like this didn't matter for anybody, because this is something that all these characters went through. I think his interpretation is that it's Spike coming back to this memory. Like, it's a memory, not a dream.
I'm a little bit more okay with that. I
think
that's trying to get at.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that kind of sets it apart is that, like, this film has a ton of these, like, little moments that, like, references what is the dream, what is the reality, talking about death and purgatory and reaching heaven. And, like, I get what you mean, Drew. There's a lot of stuff where people are like, yeah, Blue's Clues, fucking Blue has been dead this whole time.
Yeah, and like that theory. And I'm like, yeah, because there's no way to not prove it because no one knows what it's like when you're about to die.
But, yeah, but like the reason I believe this is more like akin to that is just because they deliberately call out a lot of things about like dreams and reality, and purgatory is a lot of times referenced. The scene I didn't talk about was the one where Spike does quote unquote suffers his first, like, I guess, death in the film, where he gets basically shot and thrown off the monorail by Vincent, and he's saved by like the shaman and like the other guy. And then the shaman asks, like, you saw, like, he basically says something like, you had a dream, you saw the eye of death. And Spike is like, yeah, I did, and like for the first time I was scared or whatever. And I think the line that stands out to me is like, stare into the blue eye, that is the truth, it is where everything, the past, present, and future all convene together. That line with the shaman. And to me, I'm like, this is that moment for Spike. He is staring into the eye of death and seeing the truth, all of it, his past, his present, his future, all coming together at once.
Okay, I can see.
And I mean, like, and like, I think it's, you know, it's crazy, but like, I really like that as like a theme for this story, because I also think like this, if you want to like dig into it deeper, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's sort of like, it's a way of like looking at how we consume fiction, you know, as basically you're just looking at other people's dreams. We've talked about it before on here, Drew, but like, I think how we kind of see media is, or not just media, I feel like that's such a corporate way of saying it. The way we see stories, whether it's like TV shows and like all this junk, is that fiction and stories are oftentimes rooted in some level of truth, and it's rooted in and it's always like when we watch this stuff, it's always about reflecting it back on our own experiences as well. I think that's why certain pieces of like movies and like music resonates with people than others, is because it's it depends on like, can you reflect on this experience and like allow it to like touch yourself and allow it to like, you know, tap into those experiences that you felt. And I think that's what Cowboy Bebop is about, is like, in a way, the Bebop is like the audience. They're just like staring into they are trying to find meaning in their lives by watching other people's dreams. And I mean, isn't that what we do? We try to find meaning in our lives when we like look into like these other dreams and pieces of fiction. So that's kind of like my thoughts on it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I like the symbolism. I like the metaphor, and I think that does just kind of like elevate the movie higher. I'm going to attempt now to kind of get a little bit back on track, so I don't make this like 2 hours. But I do like that metaphor, and I do agree. Of just like, yeah, that is like half the reason that like we all watch so much media or play so much games or listen to so many stories, is because like, yeah, this is some, you know, it gets changed along the way a lot, but at some point this all started as someone was sitting in a room and had an idea and put forth an effort to make it possible, whether it was a dream or whether it was based on a memory or whatever. And yeah, I don't know, it's a cool symbolism, and just like a cool way to view this story as a reflection back onto like reality. But with all that said, we'll try to. We talked a lot about the stories. I want to go back to specifically this movie and specifically the animation. And we talked a little bit about it already, but like the way that these characters move and the way that these characters animate. Obviously, it's due to like higher budget, but everything just like, even though it's higher budget, it still keeps like the style and like the sharpness of like the series. And it, you know, obviously it's the same art style, but I love how like everyone moves very like, I don't know a better way to describe it, very sharply, very like quick and like fluid. Nothing's like, there's not many like cheats in it where like they like try to cover stuff up. Like when people are fighting, it stays on the shot for a while and lets it play out. It doesn't try to like quick cut in between things and just so you just get the best angle every time. It stays on like the ceiling, or it'll stay on like a shot right behind Spike's shoulder and like let you see how weird his leg can move when he's kicking someone. And just like this, I don't know if it's a better word other than cinematography, because I know like it's an animated thing. You can put the camera wherever you want. But like the cinematography in this movie is like just so visually interesting. Like you could watch this entire movie on mute and be completely entertained the entire way through.
Oh yeah, I think one of the terms that we can use here. Now, granted, it's another animation term I'm just going to throw out. I actually don't know, but like you talk about how the way Spike kind of flows and moves. And another scene I like to think of is like towards the end of the film, the dogfight scene where Spike is in the swordfish and he's like flying out along the city walls, and he gets chased by those like patrol of like government dudes or whatever. Yeah. That scene is fucking awesome. That like whole dogfight where he's against the wall. Also the fights against like Vicious and other fight sequences, like when he's fighting Elektra. I really like the kind of woman who actually just killed me.
I was like, which one of us is gonna say the line first?
Yeah, but the term I've heard, and I don't know if this really applies here with Bebop, but it could, is it's an animation technique called sakuga. You've probably heard of this, and there's really no other way to describe it other than it's when the animation goes really hard, where it's like a lot of like free flowing like movement, and it is just going. Like you name your favorite anime's favorite fight scene or whatever, and chances are it's like it was a Sakuga scene or something like that, where the animation is just going like ballistic, where every piece of it is just like moving,
Yeah.
the environment, the characters, like whatever. And I think like a lot of that free flowing movement feels like that, feels like Sakuga. I don't know if that's exactly what's being used here, but it feels very close to it. Um, and whenever it happens, it's kick ass. You know,
Yeah.
it's a really cool. It's really cool to witness.
It's so yeah. I mean, probably other than like the opening and the final fight scene, the other big one that like stands out to me is when Spike and Elektra first meet. You don't know her name at this point, but Spike's just pretending to be a janitor. He flicks the broom back up to knock her gun out. And yeah, that's the line. I love a woman that'll just kill me, and just like it's it's anime, but it's very like Jackie Chan inspired, and I feel like Spike just in general is like a mixture of like a Jackie Chan, like Bruce Lee type character. Where like yeah, he can fight well, but he uses his environment so effectively. Like he got so much mileage out of that freaking broom. Like he got so he used that broom in every possible way, and like it's just like the way that he interacts with the world, not just in this, but like in a lot of the Cowboy Bebop is like when like the train scene's happening and they're like going away, Spike doesn't make it on, but he runs alongside the train to catch up and then grabs a rail to slip down. Another train's coming, shoot the window and flies in, and like in fight scene he's like jumping off stuff, and like it's using its environment to like the best of its ability. Like this isn't just like you couldn't do this shootout in like a random alley or like on rooftops. It wasn't work as well. It has to be a train sequence to like get these moments. So it's like if your fight's in an office building, like they utilize so many things that whatever is in that office building, like desks, chairs, people, the broom, and they'll it's the reason like Jackie Chan movies are so much fun is because when you watch a Jackie Chan and like the way he uses props, he will use that prop in every conceivable way imaginable until it is broken into 5 pieces, and then he'll throw the 5 pieces at people and then grab another thing. It's really interesting. Like it's prop work, but in animation, and it's another thing that just kind of like makes like those kind of fight scenes stick out a lot more, because like it's not just Spike kicking him, he's using the stuff around him. Heck, even in the opening, like the first thing he does is grab one of those party poppers to like scare someone. Yeah, it's just fun and creative, and that's in like in just a pure like action sense. So
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree with that.
So moving on, the last thing that I think we'll get on before we go into our ratings, is kind of the characters, and we've already done Spike, Jet, Faye, and Ed. So if you guys want to touch on them in this, you can, but there's not much to say because it's mostly Spike's movie. But what are your guys? We've talked a lot about Vincent and him being a reflection of Spike, but is there anyone else, any other characters that like super stand out, even if they just had like a few kind of quiet lines, or you guys could just talk about Vincent again? Robert, in this movie, were there kind of any like standout characters for you?
Aside from like Elektra and Vincent, not really.
Well,
I
you could
think
talk, or
those
you
were
could talk
pretty-
about Elektra and Vincent because they are the two kind of like new and main
Say
characters.
they're
Yeah,
they're the ones that get the most like focus.
yeah, and we really haven't
Um,
talked about Elektra a lot, to be fair.
yeah, because that she she's a character that can really like connect with Spike because of like everything with like the relationship, like the syndicate stuff and whatnot. Um, yeah, I just think that they work well with like Spike and kind of moving his story forward and giving more like backstory to like him.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much just where I think they succeed the most for me. I don't have any like super introspective thoughts about
That's
them,
fair.
unfortunately.
Let me actually. I thought of a. Well, here I'll let Seth answer, and then I do have one last question that might be probably a better one. But yeah,
Okay.
Seth, you were about to say something.
Oh, was I? Okay.
Oh, never mind. Oh
I
no,
think yeah.
I thought. I'm sorry, I must have misheard you. I thought Seth was
I
trying to
mean, like,
speak up.
I think it's kind of hard to talk up because it's very weird because it's like you only really get this like one version of like Vincent as like the villain, and I feel like Elektra's kind of purpose is their character is so intertwined with each other that like it's hard to separate the two.
Yeah,
You know, I feel like that's why we talked about Vincent a lot is because we talked about him being a reflection of Spike, perhaps a darker path that Spike could have gone down if he just didn't care at all about the lives around him.
yeah.
Um, and
Let,
I think, but at
oh,
the same time, like, you know, Elektra is also that too. She is also a reflection of Spike as well, a person who is still stuck in the past over this one person that she is trying to save. Um, I mean, Spike's story is almost like that to a T when it comes to Julia.
yeah.
So, I think like they're very similar. Obviously, Elektra takes things a lot more seriously. But once again, it just goes back to that scene with those two together, where I think that's all you really need to understand her and Spike and how much they connect with each other. Is they were both people who didn't have a reason to live or to really fear death until they found that reason, which was a person that they loved.
Yeah.
I think there's something beautifully poetic, and at the same time, it kind of goes to show that like you're so stuck in the past that you don't see what's in front of you is what's worth living for.
Let me ask you guys a different question that'll I don't believe this as well, but it might spark a debate. Do you guys kind of wish in this specifically in this movie that we would have seen more of more Faye, more Ed, more Ein, and more Jet? Or do you think like they're okay getting kind of sidelined a little bit? They're in it, but like
Mhm.
obviously they don't have as many. You know, they're not in a lot in a lot of the action scenes. You kind of wish we saw more of them through this. Or are you okay? They kind of like they more hard focused Spike.
I mean, I think they get some decent moments. Robert mentions like kind of like Jet's sort of like monologue about like people just kind of come and go on the ship. They're not really like a family. Um And I think Faye has a couple of like pretty funded like adventures on her own when she's going after like the hacker dude. I do like that interaction where she's like, "Here, let me try this." He's like playing like some sort of duck shooting game, and he's like, "Here, let me try this out," and then she just shoots it with a real gun. Um, I think there's like some fun moments. Obviously, they're not like the main focus of the film, uh, but I'm kind of okay with that because I feel like we got a lot of them in like the TV series itself about like their character, their backstory. Um, and I I really don't I really think that what makes this movie works is that it focuses so much in on Spike and these new characters. I truly believe that's what makes the film work. I think trying to add in more agency to Faye and Jet would kind of mess with the pacing, in my opinion. Um, I guess what you're asking is if it wouldn't disrupt the story too much or the pacing of it, I would like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because especially since this is the last time we get to see them, um, I would. But that's like asking for like a perfect world. You know, it's just like you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Um,
It does still need to be
but
2 hours at the very least.
yeah, yeah. So it's. Uh, I feel like I'm happy with the way the film is. I don't think it necessarily needed that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of with Seth on that one. I think pretty much everybody in the series had at least an episode or two dedicated to them. So I feel like having like extra like big story time for the other characters would kind of hamper the pacing, since they're not really what the story is about. Um, so I think the amount of like involvement they get in the story as is already like pretty well paced. Because again, everybody does kind of have their own moments in it. Like Seth brought up, like Faye going after the hacker dude. You got Jet, who's kind of in charge of getting like all the planes ready to just disperse like the cure over like the Halloween party. Ed's got her thing of tracking down like the hacker. Like everybody's kind of got their own thing to contribute to the story. So I don't really think that they need much else since the big focus on this film is about Spike and what he's going through. So I don't think that it's really necessary to have more of them.
Fair. Yeah. No, I agree. I just kind of wanted to see your guys' thoughts on it. But yeah, as we kind of finish this up a little bit, I'll ask you guys the final thing to just kind of. I think we all kind of have similar ratings for it. But rate it 1 through 10. Don't do any point whatever, nothing. Um, and just kind of final thoughts. I know we've kind of talked a lot, so we'll probably be repeating ourselves a little bit, but yeah, I really liked it. I think it is one of the best animated movies, and it still holds up by far to this day because of the art style and because of the dialogue. I didn't even, I mean, I mentioned it a lot, but like, yeah, we all just, every time someone talks about Cowboy Bebop, you just instinctively know to listen to the English dub because it's just that good. And I've even like listened to like clips from like the Japanese, and it just feels off because this is like Spike is like Steve Blum's character, and like he just fits that so well. And if you want more of my thoughts on like the actual dubbing of this entire show, we talk about that in the other podcast of just like how this changed that industry. But it continues here, and yeah, all the reasons you love Cowboy Bebop are right here. I think this works so well for long-term fans, and I think it works even better for people who are like brand new to the series. They won't get probably a lot of the symbolisms that like Seth really was talking about with Spike and his character at first, but like I think if you are like if you don't know if you want to get into Cowboy Bebop or not, watch the first 4 minutes of this movie. If that's not cool to you, then like don't watch anime. Watch something else. Because that 4 minutes will grab you. I promise. So yeah, I mean, this is like one of my favorite, if not like I'd probably say top five like anime movies. So like I'm probably just gonna do 10 out of 10. Like I can't think of many things to complain about the movie. Robert, what about you? Yeah, kind of final thoughts and rating.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you that if you enjoy Cowboy Bebop, it's more Bebop. If you
Yeah.
know you like Bebop, you'll like this movie. If you're not sure you'll like Bebop, because the story of the series itself isn't the most like um it's very episodic in nature aside from like a handful of episodes. So you could literally watch the movie at like any point while watching the series and feel just fine. Like oh, like you might like miss like an introduction or two for like Ed or like Faye, but aside from that, it's just another adventure in the world of Bebop. If you like really enjoy the story and all these characters, there's a lot to really dissect, especially with Spike, as we've seen Seth like talk about. If I had to give it like a personal rating, I would probably rate it about a 9 or a 10. Um, it's not like my absolute favorite movie, but just rewatching it, I was enjoying my time throughout the whole thing. I can't really think of any like major problem points. But I do have a hard time kind of figuring out like what's like my absolute favorite thing in the movie outside of like a little handful of things. But I wholeheartedly recommend watching this if you have any sort of interest in the series, if you haven't watched it already.
All right. And Seth closing us out.
Um, so my score is like obviously subject to change. Since I just recently watched this, and it's the first time I've ever seen this movie. I am riding off of that high, so I understand that like maybe later on down the line it would probably be lower, but I'm gonna give this movie like a 10 out of 10 for me personally. I think it had a very difficult task ahead, where it's like it's basic where, and I think a lot of anime films that are part of a larger series kind of struggle with this is like okay, we know that the show has like, especially with a show that actually had a definitive ending, you know, it's like, how do you get people interested in basically what many would consider a side story, you know? and
Yeah.
they did it here, and I think there's enough bits of symbolism and just weird shit going on in this film that if you want to interpret this as like, is this the true ending of Cowboy Bebop, I feel like there's enough there that you can make that argument. um but on its own, I think this movie's fantastic. I think it has great themes and it has like great storytelling. I love these characters. It solidifies it gets me into a nice space within me personally of like, I am now remembering almost 10 years ago when I first started watching Cowboy Bebop, why I considered it my favorite, why I fell so deeply in love with this series. And after spending so much time away from it, coming back to it and realizing like, damn, it is as good, if not better, than what I remembered is such a gratifying feeling. So yeah, like the movie is a must see if you watch the series. If you haven't, I think it's not a bad introduction either. Um, so yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 anime film for me. I don't watch many other anime films to be honest. Um, but this one is like, it's really up there for me.
Yep. All right.
So this is something that a lot of people say about Bebop. It does just feel like a timeless series. I think we did mention this on our last podcast too. I don't think there's ever going to be like a wrong time to watch Bebop. Like I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to I think it's going to age like a fine wine.
And it's one of those things where it gets brought up a lot, and sometimes I feel like I said, I mentioned at the start, it's like, man, is Bebop still as good as I thought it was, or am I just like caught up in like the typical like zeitgeist of like everybody else's conversation? And it's like, is it actually that good, or am I only saying that because everybody else thinks it's that good? And like going back, I'm like, no, it is that good. They were really onto something with this series.
Well, it's one of those series like where you start talking about it, there's a lot to really unpack with it. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like it's like a junk food anime that you watch it, then you spit it back out and forget about it, move on to the next. Like Bebop's something that really you can just sit with, and there's going to be almost an endless amount of things to think about with that series.
I agree. That's the best kinds of stories, I think, is the true 10 out of 10s and like 9 out of 10s are the ones that have you thinking about it long after you turned off the TV or you turned down the music.
All right. Well, I think that is. I think that's everything we can say. But that's not how we finish podcasts here on the Fresh Podcast, because we finish these with giving you our picks of the week. This is what we've been playing, watching, or listening to when we're not recording this amazing podcast. So I will go first and tell you what I've been playing, because I have a PS5 now, and for a good while I only had one game on that, and that was Spider-Man, and I 100%ed it, so I need to get more games on that. So I have been playing two of them. I've already talked about Bloodborne once on the podcast, so I will be talking about the newest game I've been playing, which is Ghost of Tsushima. And yeah, if it wasn't obvious by all the reviews that came out when this game came out in 2002 or 2020, excuse me, yeah, this game's good. This game's really good. It's beautiful to look at. It has a great soundtrack. I think the story is really interesting. And I think what it does, and like what it does really right, and a lot of open worlds don't, is it makes like doing what I call like your open world chores. It makes that fun, because in a lot of open worlds, it's like, oh, you got to take out blank amount of like towers or bases or do all that, and like that can get kind of tedious and boring, at least for me and a lot of people at times. And it's the reason a lot of times you just skip over and be like, whatever, I'm not gonna do everything because there's too much stuff. I'm only gonna do the cool stuff and the main story. But Ghost of Tsushima does a thing where it doesn't overwhelm you with a ton of things, and everything that like you do in that game gives you some kind of reward, and usually it's cool. Like even doing camps lets you upgrade to more stances so that you can be, kill Mongols easier. Doing If you just roam in the world, you'll find these really cool like mythical quests where you can get legendary armor, or a new like sword slashing technique, or a bow that can shoot explosive arrows, like something fun, or like a new armor piece. And the game does a good job of like progression and making you want to go and do the next thing. I remember like the other day I spent like my entire time playing the game because someone told me about this cool armor you can get, and it had this like the black and white like paint grag for. So I'm like, that's cool. I want to do that, and I just like I went to every camp with this, literally walking around the main story because I'm like, I don't want to do that yet. I'll come back to that, but I'm gonna do the main story on my cool new armor, and just to go to all these camps so I could get this armor. And right when I finished the armor, I went by and there was another guy talking about like, hey, there's this really cool like Dance of Death, super cool kill combo that you can do. And I'm like, dang it, all right, I'll get back to the main story. I gotta do this dance thing now. And like that's such a good sign of an open world of like, I want to just keep going to the next thing, and I don't want to progress the story because I'm like, oh, but I want all the things first. And yeah, and that's not even get into like the story and all that, which I'm midway through the game, so I can't really talk too much about. But yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is a really fun time and a really enjoyable first playthrough. That was a lot of me talking. Yeah. So someone else is allowed to talk now. What about Robert? What have you been playing, watching, or listening to?
Alright, so this is actually a game I played about a couple months ago.
Okay.
But we're recording this in March right now. We're in the heart of what us Americans like to call tax season. So what better way to celebrate than to play a little indie game called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion? Um, it is a fun little like 2D Zelda-like game. So it's like a top-down perspective. It's got elements of exploration, puzzle solving, combat, all that fun stuff all put together, and nice little adventure game with lots of fun little dialogue, a bit of course like dark undertones and elements, but it's just a fun little game about a turnip who really does not want to pay taxes. And I laughed at it more than I probably should have because it has a lot of dumb meme humor in it. But if you want a good little game to play for a couple hours, I wholeheartedly recommend that game.
The sequel, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, is also on Game Pass right now too, and I've also heard like very good things about that.
It's a game I found like on a whim, and I had a really good time with it. It was a nice like lay in bed Steam Deck game.
Yeah, that one has definitely admittedly has had my eye. It's like if I ever find some downtime, I really want something silly, I might check that out, or Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, one of those.
That's fun. All right, Seth, it's you're
right.
the big closer. What's the fantastic piece of what's the fantastic story that you've been doing? I'll try to say media less now.
So unless you want me to talk about Rent a Girlfriend, I don't have.
Oh, dear God! Never mind. All right, I will end the podcast right now.
That is as rotten as they come.
Yeah. I will push. I have my finger over the stop recording button right now.
What do you call something that has like a really rotten outside, but then it has like sort of a fresh core, but then if you dig any deeper, it's just going to get worse?
Oh, I know the exact. Wait, I know what the metaphor that you're looking for right now. It's that one river in Everett. It's called Denial, and you need to stop talking. This show is bad.
But no, it's not no. I'm not recommending that show. I don't, because it's not necessarily a fresh pick because it's something I've watched a long time ago, but. And it was something I was very disappointed that you guys didn't even mention in the Cowboy Bebop podcast. If you like Cowboy Bebop and you want something that gives you very similar vibes to that and a similar approach to storytelling, you need to check out Samurai Champloo. Samurai
episode? Really?
You did not.
Really?
I listened to that podcast. I listened the whole time. You talked about Vinland Saga, which is cool, but like it's not Samurai Champloo, bro.
I could have sworn I
Samurai Champloo.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
So neither Becca or I have watched Samurai Champloo.
Yeah. If you don't know, it was also directed by the same director for Cowboy Bebop, Shinichiro Watanabe. Made by a different studio though. And it came out in 2005, and all I can say really about what I could say about this show is it has the the ultimate Adult Swim vibes to it, because
Yeah.
it is just like, it is just this badass anime with this really amazing kick-ass lo-fi hip-hop soundtrack, with Nujabes in it. I admit that he is a very big force behind this, but he is not the only artist on this. I only bring this up because a lot of Samurai Champloo fans seem to think it was only him. It's like, no, there were other artists. There was Little John, there was Suchi, there was Force of Nature. There were other artists besides Nujabes on the soundtrack. Please, people. Anyways, although, rip in peace Nujabes, he did really great work here. But Samurai Champloo is this, like, if Cowboy Bebop was about mashing together space westerns with jazzy soundtracks, then Samurai Champloo is about mixing together hip hop and rap with feudal era Japan. And it's so fucking cool. It's another one of those shows where you need to watch it in dub, because Steve Blum is back in it, and he voices one of the main characters, Mugen, who I would say is kind of the complete opposite of Spike. Whereas Spike is a lot more calm and collected and cool with everything. Mugen is a fucking hothead. But he's badass. I love Mugen. You also have Jin, the like opposing samurai to him, his rival, and then you also have Fu, which is like this young girl that they're helping because she's on a quest to find the samurai that smells of sunflowers. I love Samurai Champloo. There are, when it comes to like top animes, it's like Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo for me. And I'll be honest, it really depends. I go back and forth which one I like more. There are lately, I would say I kind of feel Samurai Champloo is better, but that's just my personal opinion. It's so good. It's pure vibes. It has a very similar format to Cowboy Bebop's way of storytelling, where you get certain episodes that focuses a lot on like the main cast or one of those characters. We also get a lot of episodic episodes about them just going on adventures, and it can go really buck wild on like what they decide to do with it. But it's such a good anime. It's also another one of my personal favorites, and I highly recommend, if you're just chomping at the bit for something to give you the same feelings that like Cowboy Bebop gave you, check out Samurai Champloo. It also might have one of the best ending themes to a series, period. Yes, even compared to Real Folk Blues. I love Shiki no Uta. It is badass as shit. It's such a good vibe of an ending theme. So check out Samurai Champloo. I cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah. I'm surprised I didn't talk about it. I don't know why I had a feeling I like referenced it but even if I did, yeah. Well, it's a great show. Maybe if Robert ever gets down to watching it, we'll do a podcast on that. But no, it's a fantastic show. Like very, very good. But that is everything for today.
And you can also check out Red Tick Girlfriend. It's not that bad.
No,
like,
it is. Don't watch that show. Don't listen. People, listen to me. Do not listen to Seth. This is propaganda.
See, I have more room to stand on than you, Drew, because I actually read the fucking manga.
That's arguably worse.
and hey, it recently finished out with the third season is way better than it had any right to be.
It's gonna fall straight down the cliff again.
Most likely will fall down. Any sort of development we got here is going to be completely reset by season 4. So just enjoy it while you can. I don't know. Go find like a fanfic or a notion to get any sort of resolution, because God knows you're not going to get it in the manga. I will say this much. One more thing. The legendary voice actor Alex Lee, who voices Luke from Street Fighter, he does have a line in the dub for season 3 where he says, "I hope you don't mind. I'm about to go beast mode, baby." It's just like,
don't wait. Is that real? I thought that was a meme.
It's a real scene. It's a real scene. It's a real line.
The protagonist in Persona 3 Reload.
He does. He also voices Bruce Lee in that one fighting game, like Free for All. Nirvana?
Yeah, but there's
no. What's it? Naraka.
I don't know.
Naraka. I just wanted to point out I knew who the guy was too. Yeah.
I just want to say though, there's only 2 pieces of media though where he gets to say beast mode, baby, and that's Street Fighter. There's fucking Rent a Girlfriend. So go check out Rent a Girlfriend.
Don't.
God have mercy on your soul.
Don't. Oh
Be sure
my
to watch
god.
the dub.
Oh my god. Okay. We are. God, we had
This
such a
out,
good
dude.
way to close. You said to put a bad taste in my mouth. That. Oh god. All right.
All
Thanks.
stories are
Just say see a
stories. Doesn't
space
mean they're all
cowboy.
good.
Just say see a space cowboy.
Thanks for watching.
Not every dream's good. It's not worth watching.
Are you done? Are you done? You got any
I
more?
think so, yeah.
Okay. Jesus. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. Bye.